I've heard it so many times. Gen Z doesn't want to work. They're lazy. They don't show up on time. They want too much too fast. But here's what I've seen up close. Some of the most driven, creative, and self-disciplined people I've worked with, they're in their early 20s. They don't hate hard work. They hate wasted effort. They're not flaky. They just refuse to pretend to care about things that don't matter. And when companies finally stop judging them by outdated stereotypes, that's when the magic happens. Today, we're going to break down the Gen Z work ethic myth, where it came from, why it's wrong, and how the companies who get this right are building the strongest teams on the market while everyone else struggles to hire. Let's talk about it. The myth didn't come out of nowhere, obviously, right? It's rooted in generational whiplash. Boomers clocked in, they clocked out. Gen X, they played the corporate game, right? Let me rise up the ranks. Millennials, they hustled through burnout. And now Gen Z, they show up saying, why are we doing it this way? And when a 23-year-old questions the system, older leaders, they panic. They say, they don't want to work. No, they want to waste their life in broken systems. And people get this wrong. That's not entitlement. Gen Z, they're not entitled. That's clarity. So let's kill this right now. Gen Z is not lazy. They're just selective about how they spend their energy. That's smart. That's logic. They don't show up early to look good. They show up early if it matters. They won't grind through 80-hour weeks just to prove a point. But they'll crush a project if it's clear, meaningful, and collaborative. So one startup founder that I'm friends with told me, we gave our intern a creative brief, and he went home and built a prototype by the next morning without us even asking. That's not lazy. That's discretionary effort. And Gen Z brings it when it's earned, not demanded. So this one's everywhere, all right? They job hop. They quit fast. They don't commit. Let's flip that, though. Why should they stay in companies that don't coach them, don't develop them, don't listen to their ideas? Gen Z is loyal. They're loyal to growth, impact, and leadership that sees them. So give them that, and they will stay. They will retain. They're not going to job hop. Ghost them, and yeah, they'll bounce. They'll dip. They'll move on to the next opportunity. One Gen Z designer that I interviewed said, I didn't quit because I wanted more money. I quit because I never got feedback. Like, I was just guessing every day on my job. Now, companies call that disloyal. I don't. I call that self-respect. So let me translate what that means. Let me translate that for you. They don't dress like we did. They ask questions too early. They want clarity before compliance. But professionalism is not silence. It's self-awareness. It's creating boundaries. It's having emotional intelligence. And Gen Z has that, right? Gen Z's got that in abundance. I see it every day. They're comfortable saying, I need more direction on this. That deadline is not realistic. Here's a better one. I'd rather do one thing well than three things half-ass. That's not insubordination. That is modern collaboration. That is how you collaborate in 2025. I watched two companies hire the same type of candidate. So the exact same type of candidate. Here's what this candidate was. 22 years old. Smart, resourceful, curious. Limited experience, right? But huge potential. Company A wanted them to prove themselves. Company A gave no feedback, no structure, and said, just figure it out. The person quit in 2 months. Company B gave them a mentor, clear projects to work on, room to ask questions 6 months later. Guess what? 6 months later, they were owning client calls, launching campaigns, training the next intern. Same candidate, right? Different environment. Now, if you believe the myth, right, that you build systems that repel your best talent, you filter for polish, over curiosity. You punish questions instead of rewarding them. You treat boundaries like rebellion, not wisdom. And while you're micromanaging Gen Z out of your company, guess what? Your competitor is building a powerhouse team. They're building a powerhouse team with Gen Z and creating the next future generation of leaders in their company. Because smart leaders, they realize Gen Z is not broken. They realize that Gen Z is built for what's next. What's the next evolution of the business? And here's what they do. Here's what these companies do. They coach. They don't command. Right? Gen Z doesn't need a boss. They need a guide. They need a coach. They need someone who's in the arena with them, who's in the battle with them, in the war with them. Two, they build with context. So don't just tell them what to do. Tell them why it matters. Tell them why we're doing this. Show them how their work connects to the bigger picture of how this helps the business. 3, they reward initiative over obedience. You want people who think for themselves? Let them think for themselves. Encourage them to ask questions and be curious. Celebrate improvement. Build a culture that says, hey, good call. Now keep on going. So no, Gen Z is not the problem, you guys. They're the mirror. They're showing us what work has become, and they're showing us what it can be. And if you keep judging them by the wrong standards, all right, you're just going to keep losing the talent that's already 5 steps ahead. Imagine how far back you go if that's how you build your business. So if you learn how to listen, if you learn how to coach, you learn how to build around their strengths, you're not only just going to hire better, you're going to lead better, all right? And if this made you think differently about Gen Z, go ahead and drop a like on the video, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear what is one stereotype that you've heard or that you proved wrong. And if you're trying to build a high-performance team with next-gen talent, subscribe to my channel for more real stories, real strategies, and real frameworks that actually work. See you in the next one.